Hey everybody, and welcome to another Dorico video. Today I'm going to be doing something pretty quick, but I think it's something pretty darn important, which is dealing with fonts in Dorico. Now, I've done other videos on page formatting and other things, but I tend to get a lot of questions about how to make people's parts look more unique and more customized. And one of the best ways of doing this is using your own fonts in your page formatting. So today we're going to take a quick look at font settings here in Dorico Pro 6. So what I have up here is a version of The Incredibles that I arranged for a saxophone duo project I work with, where we play with guitar, bass, drums, and the two horns. So what I want to do is I want to change up the font sets to make this look a little bit more like my own custom arrangement and a little bit less like it just came straight out of Dorico using standard, readily available fonts. Now, the font that I've been using more and more lately is one called Skia. And there's nothing particularly special about it. I just kind of like the character it gives my music. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that as our primary font for both the text as well as the titles, chord symbols, and other things. And so we're going to be going in and we're going to be changing the font settings in a couple of different places. And we're also going to go in and we're going to edit our title blocks on our pages for both parts and the score to make them look uniform as well. So whether or not we started with a Dorico template or with something that we hand created, the first step that we're going to take is we're actually going to go in and we're going to go under the library menu and we're going to go under the font styles. The way that Dorico works with fonts is it uses parent families for fonts. What does this mean? So whenever you're using a font set, you'll notice that it goes to a parent, and that parent is derived from some other setting in the fonts. Now, this is a good thing because what this means is with a few simple locations, we can change the font in much of our document. So the first and most important place to go when we're trying to change the font in our document is under the font styles and the default text font. This is used for so much of our document, and it's really important that we pick one that we really like. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to go down under our font, and we're going to go ahead and change it. Now, in Dorico 6, they introduced this great search bar. So since I told you I used Skia, I can go ahead and type that in, and that will give me Skia. Now, here you'll notice that it sets the default as size 10, which you might think, well, that's really small. But you got to remember that the default font is really just a placeholder for a whole bunch of other things because the size, bold, all these other things will be set in other locations. So I typically am just worried about what the font family is here. And so I'm going to go ahead and load that in. So if I hit OK, everywhere that uses the default font will now be changed. But you look at the document and you think, well, wait a minute, nothing changed. And that's because there's another place that Dorico loads in a default font that changes a whole lot of other locations, which is under the library menu again, but this time it's under paragraph styles. Now, I'm not sure why Dorico has two different places for this default font thing, but since it does, this is something we have to change. So just like in the previous menu, under the paragraph files, you'll see that we have a default text font. And this is the one where pretty much everything in the document draws from in terms of text. So again, you can see right now it's set to Finale Broadway. So we're going to go ahead and change this over to Skia. And you'll see that its default is size 12, which is pretty good for print. And you'll see that it's set for regular and the case is normal, meaning I'll have to use shift for a capital letter and whatnot. And that's really what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And you'll see now the tempo block, the composer, the title, all of this other info was now changed over because some items are drawn from that font styles and then the other ones are drawn from the paragraph styles. So by doing those two things, we have now changed almost all of the text blocks in our document. You'll also notice that this also changed the text blocks in our parts as well. And so it was a really uniform change. Now in this flute, tenor, sax part, if we go over to our chord symbols, you'll notice that it went ahead and applied the text to our chord symbols. And that's because the chord symbols draw the default font from our font styles. So if you were to go under font styles again and go to chord symbol font, you'll see that it draws from its parent, which is the default text font, which I had set at Skia, and then it resizes it for what it thinks it needs, which in this case is size 16. Now those look a little big to my eyes. I'm going to go ahead and turn that down just a little bit. And I'm also going to change the style to condensed, because for chord symbols I actually want them to be a little squished together so they don't take up so much white space. So if I hit OK, you can see that it actually made the font symbols a little bit smaller, but it also squeezed the letters just a little bit. Now the flats and the sharps for the chord symbols and other places like the B flat for clarinet and B flat are done in another spot, which is again under font styles. If we go under our default music text font, you'll see it is set on Petaluma, which I want to change this over to Golden Age, which is the font that I'm more liking for my notation. And again, I'm not going to worry too much about the size because this is just the parent font. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And you can see it already changed it in my chord symbols, and it seems to match with the Skia a little bit better. The Petaluma is kind of squished, and it gets lost in between the characters, but this one stands out just a little bit more. So with just a few clicks, you'll see that I changed my title blocks, my composer, my arranger, even my copyright information, if I had entered it in there, as well as tempo markings, in just these 2 locations. And as a bonus, you can see I went ahead and I changed up my chord symbols and my chord symbol music text font, aka the flats and the sharps, with only about 3 clicks in 3 different places. So it's a really quick process. Now, if you want to change up the title blocks a little bit more, this is where we can get a little more creative. So where we're going to go is we're going to go back under library and go to paragraph styles, but this time we're going to go under the title paragraph style down here on the bottom, and you can see right now it draws from our default text, but it alters the size and the style. So in this case, it set the size to 20 and it set it to absolute so that it will not change no matter what the rastral size of the document is. But it also set the style to regular. But let's say I want to change that to bold because I'd like it to stand out a little bit more. And the great thing is, because the title blocks on both the score and parts are drawn from this same spot, you can see it alters it in both places simultaneously. We can verify this by going under the Engrave tab, going down to our first template, which is the first page of our parts, and you can see that if I was to double-click inside of this title block here, you'll see that right here, this is the paragraph style that it is drawing the title block from. And look, it's drawing it from title. So any changes we make to that paragraph style will be reflected anywhere where that paragraph style is used. And so when we use font styles, it's a way of making it more automatic. So any changes we make are spread out across the document so it goes so much quicker. Another one of these I really like to change is the tempo blocks, because I feel like the tempos really need to stand out a little bit. So again, under my paragraph styles, if we go down here, you'll see there's the tempo, which is the metronome mark. And that's the one that's going to be things like allegro or moderato, those words. And I'm going to go ahead and change this to black condensed. Maybe that's a little too bold. So how about just bold? And I'm going to take it up a little bit to say 10.5, and I'm going to hit OK. And you'll see, look at that. It made the number and the quarter note just a little bit bolder. And if I go again back under the paragraph styles, and I go to the immediate, and because I had used the bold for the metronome mark, aka the number after the quarter note equal, I'm going to go ahead and make the words bold as well. So you can see in those two places, now all of my tempo markings are going to be bold, which makes them pop a little bit more, which I think is a good thing. If you go under that paragraph style, you'll see a whole bunch of different things like rehearsal marks. Let's say we want those to be black, which is a really big one for this font. So now you can see all of my boxes are really big. Now I'm not sure I like that one, so I'm going to go ahead and undo that. But you can see if I want to make those changes, it's that quick and that easy. And it reflects in all of the different parts at the same time. So if I go to the next part down, you'll see, look at that. The tempo block is the same, and it's the same in the score as well. So when you're editing the fonts, the most important places to go are the font styles, and we want to change the default text font for all of our words. Then we want to look at our default music font. So if you want to change the notes and things, that's where we could go to the golden age, like I said before, is my new favorite font style. And that'll change all the notes in the document. And if I go under the default music text font, this is the flats and sharps and things like B flat clarinet and things like that. Then finally, when I go under paragraph styles, I've got my default text font, which means that all the text blocks that use the default font will go ahead and draw from that. And that way I will get a very uniform document and I'll be able to change my font set really, really quickly. Now you can go in and you can click on this little star down here to set something as your default. And you'll see that the star is blackened in like this because I've set Skia as my default. And then one next to it there resets to factory, so that'll send it back to what Dorico used at the factory. But again, I like the Skia. I think it looks great, and so that's my new favorite font set. So again, in about 30 seconds worth of clicks, you can have your document looking far more customized and making it your own notational style very, very quickly. Thanks so much for watching, and make sure you check back for more Dorico videos. I'll have lots more information, as well as information on my new studio space and some of the hardware and software that I've been using lately. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.